Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tales, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories. Raw confessions. Shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now, let's get into today's tale. I was hosting a small charity gala when my husband's mother arrived uninvited and publicly accused me of embezzlement. She's been stealing from the fund, she told the guests. My husband stepped forward not to defend me but to say, "We have concerns." The donors pulled their support immediately. I dug into the financial logs and found a new account linked to my name but created from an IP address that traced back to "Hi, I'm Elena, 42, from Erie, Pennsylvania. I thought I had a decent life, not perfect, but decent. Married to a man I trusted, working hard for a charity I helped build from the ground up. Hosting a small local gala should have been a peaceful night. It wasn't. That night changed everything. I found out just how cruel people can be, especially the ones who smile at you across the dinner table. I had been planning the event for weeks, a modest charity night for Hope Forward, the nonprofit I co-founded 10 years ago. We help struggling families, food, school supplies, emergency rent, things like that. Nothing flashy. We rented a room at the Erie Community Center, finger food, some soft music, wine, donate by a local bar owner. The point was to show donors where their money had gone, progress reports, a few success stories. Things were going fine, until I saw her, Marissa, my husband's mom. She wasn't invited. That was intentional. I hadn't spoken to her in over a year. Every time we interacted, she made snide comments. She always hated that Derek married me, said I was too ambitious, said I wasn't family material. She walked straight into the room without making eye contact, still in her wet coat, walked right up next to me, stepped on stage and grabbed the mic out of my hand like it was hers. She didn't say hi. She didn't smile. She just looked at the room and said, "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think everyone here deserves to know. Elena has been stealing from this fund." The room went dead quiet. My brain couldn't even process it at first. I thought she was joking, having some weird episode or maybe drunk. Then Derek, my husband, walked forward. I locked eyes with him. I thought he'd defend me, say she was confused, shut her down, but he didn't. He looked at the crowd and said, "We've noticed some irregularities. We're trying to figure out what's going on. We have concerns." He said it like he was trying to be neutral, calm, reasonable, like this was a routine audit. But the message was clear, he wasn't backing me. He was standing with her. That night, the charity died. The next morning, donation pledges were canceled. Emails flooded in. One guy demanded his $10,000 back. A restaurant owner who had partnered with us for 3 years said he was disappointed and wouldn't be renewing support. Some didn't even wait for the facts. My board of directors held an emergency meeting without me. I was temporarily relieved of all admin duties until the matter could be cleared. Translation: they didn't trust me anymore. I didn't cry that night. I sat in silence while Derek poured himself bourbon like it was a normal night. I asked, "Why would she say that?" He said, "She's worried there's an account with your name on it. Money's missing. She brought it to my attention." You believed her. She showed me some stuff. I don't know, it looks bad. I walked out of the room before I said something I'd regret. Slept in the guest room. First thing the next morning, I drove to the office. I still had login access. I found the account quickly. It was set up under my name. It looked like someone had transferred around $78,000 out over 6 months, but I never created that account. Whoever did, they knew how our system worked. The money transfers were masked to look like vendor payments, small ones scattered across regular expenses. I contacted our software provider and asked for an IP history tied to that account. They hesitated, but I pushed, explained the legal situation. They sent a report. Most of the login came from the same IP. I ran it through a tracking site. It was a home internet IP from Mobile, Pennsylvania, Joanne's house. I printed everything, took it home, showed Derek. He looked at it, shook his head and said, "That doesn't prove anything." "What are you talking about?" "The account was accessed from her house. Maybe you were there and forgot. She said you stopped by a few months ago." He said it so casually, like maybe I just blacked out and logged in from her kitchen. I hadn't stepped foot in her house since 2023. I called one of the board members, explained everything, showed them the report. They were polite, but it was clear they didn't want to get involved. One of them even said, "Elena, I'm sorry, but if your husband and his mother are saying something's off, we have to protect the donors, protect the donors." What about protecting me? I stopped trying to convince people. They didn't want the truth. They wanted the story to be over, quiet, clean. I started working alone. First, I pulled every piece of metadata I could, login times, browser history, timestamps. Next, I got creative. I bought a prepaid phone, created a fake identity, Trish Myers, claimed to be part of a new donor foundation out of Pittsburgh. I emailed Joan using a new address and said I heard she was an expert in nonprofit banking systems and that I'd love to learn how to set up discrete fund routing for high-value donors. I didn't think she'd bite. She did. She called me that same week, gave me full walkthroughs, even sent PDFs explaining how she'd helped others avoid red tape. I recorded every call, saved every email, her voice explaining how to make accounts under other people's names, how to mask money transfers as consulting fees, even joked about helping the clueless ones look smart. She thought she was impressing me. She had no idea she was digging her own grave. I wasn't ready to go public just yet. I needed one more piece, so I dug into her bank records. That part was harder. I had to ask a lawyer friend to help me get access through a financial discrepancy request tied to the charity's audit. She pushed it through. What we found, $42,000 sitting in a checking account under Joanne's name, labeled as consulting payments from our charity. The name attached to the sender? Elena T. Newman, my name. She paid herself and made it look like I signed off. I didn't even know she had access to the financial back end, but she did, because Derek gave it to her. The moment I saw that payment labeled under my name, something inside, *me cracked. It wasn't just fraud, it wasn't just theft, it was personal. Marissa wanted me ruined. Derek gave her the tools and both of them were still pretending to be the victims. I stopped talking to Derek entirely. Lived in the same house, but I didn't say a word. He changed the locks on my office door at work and only used my private phone for communication. I didn't know who else was helping. Themi started digging deeper. One night I was looking through old financial records, vendor lists, donation entries, invoices, trying to find patterns in the stolen money. I noticed something weird. A company called J10 Consulting was listed on multiple invoices going back 2 years. Didn't recognize the name. Nobody on the board had ever mentioned them, but they'd received $500 to $1,000 payments almost monthly for operational strategy support. The address on file was a UPS store in Meatville. Sound familiar? I drove there, asked the clerk about the P.O. box, said he couldn't give personal info but confirmed someone picked up mail there twice a week. Middle-aged woman, gray streak in her hair, drove a navy Honda Marisash, had created a fake company and funneled charity money through it for 2 years, and Derek had signed off on every one of those payments. He pulled the board meeting minutes every time she got paid. Derek had vouched for the vendor, said they were recommended by a close family connection, never said it was his mothery, didn't want to wait. Anna Mori. I printed out the invoices, the bank transfers, the J10 shell company details. I walked into our kitchen at 6:30 p.m. where Derek was pouring himself his usual glass of bourbon. Same routine, like nothing in the world was wrong. He slapped the file on the counter. Want to tell me how you and your mom have been laundering donor money through a fake company? He stared at the papers. Come at first, then his expression changed. You went digging? Of course I died, took a sip and sat down. You don't understand, he said. She was just trying to help. You were working too hard. You didn't see the cracks. She stole from a nonprofit. That I both looked me in the eye and said the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. It's not like you were going to notice. You were too busy being a hero. I swear I saw Rev, didn't even deny it, just thought I wouldn't catch him, that I'd stay quiet to protect the charity's name, that I'd swallow it. Leaned back and said, you don't have proof that I knew what she was doing. I smiled. Didn't know about the voice recordings, the emails, the paper trail. I didn't say anything else. I walked out of the room, went to the guest bedroom and started organizing everything I had into 3 copies, one for my lawyer, one for the police, one for the press. 2 days later I got an anonymous tip in my inbox. No name, just one sentence. You missed something. Check the escrow file tied to Derek's real estate firm. He didn't even know what they were referring to. Derek wasn't active in real estate, at least not anymore, but I remembered he held an inactive license and used to dabble in property management before we got married. He called in a favor with an old accountant friend who used to do contract work for housing agency. She pulled the fillet. It was worse than I thought. Derek had set up a holding account under the charity's tax ID. Used it to secure a down payment on a commercial property outside of Pittsburgh, a bar under renovation. Owner on record, not him, not Marisate, was a woman named Melissa Cartwright, his ex-girlfriend, a name I hadn't heard in years. They were still in contact, still working together, and from the look of it they were building something on stolen funds. This wasn't just betrayal, this was a full-blown operation. He didn't go to the board, I didn't go to the police, not yet. He needed everything lined up. I needed them cornered, so I called Melissa, pretended to be a potential vendor for the bar renovation, said I got her name from Derek. She was warm, too warm, like she was expecting the call. In less than 5 minutes she confirmed everything. Yes, Derek was helping fund the berries. They were rebuilding something great together. No, she didn't think his wife me would get in the way. He hung UPI had it all now: fraud, laundering, embezzlement, secret relationships, stolen identity, wire fraud, and enough hard evidence to ruin them both forever. But I wasn't going to just send it to the cops, not yet. He had something else planned, something that would make them feel every second of what they'd done to me. After the call with Melissa I didn't sleep. He laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how deep this had gone. Derek and Marissa hadn't just stolen money, they built a future with Ida Bar, a new business, a second life, all funded by my work and the donors' trust. They weren't just crooks, they were planning to disappear Into a new chapter like nothing happened. Probably thought I'd just file for divorce, lick my wounds and vanish. They had no idea who they were dealing with. He started prepping a full report to send to my attorney, but while reviewing one of the escrow files, something strange jumped out. One of the signatories on the renovation project was a man named Caleb Milbrooke. Knew that Namihi was an old friend of Derek's from college, used to come around our house years ago when Derek still had his landscaping business. Sleazy guy, big drinker, always looking for the next hustle. Last I heard he filed bankruptcy after some kind of insurance scam. So why was he involved in the bar deal? I did a background check. Caleb had been listed as co-founder of J10 Consulting 2 years earlier. Same fake vendor Marissa had been using to funnel payments from Hope Forward. His address matched one of the secondary IPs used to access the fake account. Wasn't just a friend, was part of it. Marissa, Derek, Melissa, and now Caleb. This was a team job. They'd planned it over years. Slow, methodical theft using shell companies, splitting accounts and covering for each other. I was never supposed to find out that night. I logged into Derek's old laptop, had used it mostly for personal stuff, but I remembered he kept some of his passwords saved on it. Once left it open when he went out of town, and I had copied a few key files just in case. I searched every folder. One labeled archive caught my eye. Inside were voice memos. Dozens, most were old reminders, recordings of meetings or memos to himself, but one file dated 6 months before the gala was different. I pressed play. Joanne's voice: you need to keep her distracted. Let her plan the gala. Let her look like the face of the thing. Once the money's moved, we make our exit. Derek: she's going to lose her mind. Marissa: let her. She'll break down. We'll say it's stress. The donors will believe us. Then laughter, both of them laughing. My hands were shaking. They planned to destroy me, let me carry the blame, watch me fall apart, while they left with everything. And they were laughing about it. I realized something. The board didn't care about drama, but they did care about their names, their reputations, their business ties. So I went through the donation logs and cross-referenced them with political donations and business interests of each board member. I found 2 that were heavily tied to public image. One owned a chain of organic food stores, the other was running for city council. I sent them an anonymous packet, no return address, just documents, recordings, and a simple note: this goes public in 72 hours unless Hope Forward formally clears Elena Newman and opens a full investigation into internal embezzlement. The next day, I got a call from one of the board members I trusted, Marcy. She said, Elena, what the hell is going on? I told her everything. She met me for coffee that night and said something that stuck with me: they picked the wrong woman to screw with. 2 days later, I got an invite to a private board meeting. No Derek, no Marissa. Marcy had pulled some strings. I walked in with a folder, a flash drive, and a straight face. The board sat around a long table, looking nervous. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I walked them through every detail: the fake account, the IP logs, the invoices, the real estate deal, the voice memos, the bar Melissa was opening using stolen money. I didn't spare anyone. And then I ended with this: they tried to bury me in front of donors. You all stood back. Now you have a choice: protect yourselves and fix this, or go down with them. There was silence. Then one of the members said, what do you want us to do? I looked him in the eye and said, let me finish what they started. With the board now leaning my way, I went on offense. I sent the evidence to the Erie County DA's office, the IRS, and the Pennsylvania Attorney General's Charity Fraud Unit. I filed a lawsuit through my attorney for identity theft, defamation, and financial damages, not just against Marissa, but against Derek, Caleb, and Melissa too. I froze every asset tied to the charity until a third-party forensic audit could be completed. The audit found another $20,000 in consulting fees routed through different shell vendors, names that tied back to Derek's old college buddies. Marissa had set the fire. Derek poured the gasoline. But I brought the match. And I was just getting started. By the end of January, the entire town knew. Local news picked it up first, then a statewide outlet ran a piece: charity scandal in Erie, family accused of embezzling thousands. They used real names, real photos. The reporter even called the Gala incident an attempted public character assassination. That part hit hard. They tried to make me the villain. Now they were the ones being investigated. But I wasn't done. The IRS moved fast. Once they saw the shell companies and fake 1099s under the charity's tax ID, they froze Derek's personal and joint accounts. His old business bank got subpoenaed. He was still trying to play it cool, going to work, telling people it was a misunderstanding. Then, one Monday morning, federal agents showed up at his office. They walked him out in cuffs. Fraud, tax evasion, identity theft, conspiracy. Marissa was arrested the same week, at her house in Meville. She screamed at the officers, said I had set her up, that it was a witch hunt. The police didn't care. They found flash drives in her home office, with spreadsheets labeled consulting budget, alt donation log, and, no joke, backdoor plan. She made it easy for them. Alyssa Grant tried to disappear. She shut down the bar project and took off to Ohio. But the DA's office traced a $28,000 wire into her personal account. They issued a warrant. She turned herself in a week later. She cried in court, said she didn't know the money was stolen. They showed emails where she joked about being the boss's secret investment. Judge didn't laugh. Caleb tried to flip on Derek and Marissa, claimed he was just the paperwork guy but his signature was on contracts. His email was on vendor invoices. And they had text messages showing him talking about skimming off the top, without Elena catching on. He pled guilty, agreed to testify against the others, still got 18 months in federal prison. The trial lasted weeks. I had to testify. It wasn't easy. They put me on the stand and dragged me through everything, my marriage, my finances, even the breakdown I had after the gala. But I stayed steady, answered every question, showed every document, played every recording. Marissa sat there with her arms crossed the whole time, still acting like it was all my fault. Derek wouldn't look at me. When they read the verdicts, I didn't cheer. I didn't cry. I just sat there and let the relief hit. Derek, guilty, 5 years federal prison, restitution ordered. Marissa, guilty, 3 years federal, plus a personal judgment for damages. Melissa, guilty plea, 2 years probation, financial penalty. Caleb, guilty plea, 18 months prison. I divorced Derek. The judge granted me full control of all joint assets, what was left of them. He owed me nearly $300,000 in damages. I knew I'd never see all of it, but I didn't care. His name was ruined. I restructured Hope Forward. Cleaned house. Rebuilt trust. Donors came back, not all, but enough. The board issued a public apology, admitting they acted too fast, trusted the wrong people. They asked me to return as full-time executive director. I said yes. But with conditions, full transparency, independent oversight, no more blind trust. And me. I moved into a smaller home outside Erie, peaceful, quiet. No bourbon glasses on the counter. No forced smiles across the table. Just space. I learned a lot, that love can rot. That loyalty can be weaponized. That silence protects the wrong people. But I also learned that revenge, real revenge, isn't about screaming or slamming doors. It's about standing your ground when everyone wants you to shrink. It's about waiting, watching, and making sure the truth lands hard. I didn't just get justice. I destroyed every part of the machine they built. And I slept just fine after that.